Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bobby. Andrew Tate starts his own political party called BRUV, and he's running for Prime Minister of the UK. Along the way, somehow he turned on Islam now and wants to kick the Muslims out of the UK, and apparently we have an Islamic crime problem. Guys, before we jump into the tweets, as always, if you enjoy my content, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out the links in the description box below to further support my work. Thank you so much for that. And now, with no further ado, let's have a look. Okay, here's the first post. Andrew Tate says, "We are back. Join us at Vote BRUV. We're taking Britain back to greatness. The revolution will be televised. Thanks, BRUV, Elon Musk." Yeah, so we all know that Elon Musk is as well used by the neocons as some sort of far-right conservative figure that is in full support of the new cause. Here you see BRUV, Vote BRUV, Britain restoring underlying values. Yes, BRUV, upholding tradition, restoring our great nation for a stronger, prouder Britain. This is especially hilarious because what does it even mean? Andrew Tate is of mixed race. He's half African, Afro-American, and his mother, I believe, is English. He was born in the States as well, and now somehow he has to restore Britain to his underlying values. Meanwhile, he's living in Romania and allegedly became a Muslim. But this post here really takes the cake, man. Andrew Tate says the UK will not be a tool for Islamists or Zionists. Both will be rejected. Both interest groups aim to extract value from the nation to use as a pawn on their board. We are restoring Great Britain to what she once was. A Christian nation with a proud people. And any Muslim who lives within her must respect that. See here how he's only pointing out any Muslim, even though he started with Islamist and Zionist. He's not saying any Muslim or Jew. He simply sticks with the evil Muslims. Much like Christians must respect that Dubai is Islamic. Okay, it is very easy for religions to coexist with a strong culture and rule of law. And we are restoring British culture. It will feel like England in '95 again. And anyone who has a problem with that can get out. Yeah, on that note, I would really recommend Andrew Tate to watch the video called "That Time England Almost Converted to Islam" by SideQuest Animated History. There you can truly see how fragile the concept of tradition, culture, etc. is once the ruling elite decides which religion will be implemented. And therefore, yes, you can watch the video. England almost became Islamic after all. But that being said, I wouldn't even care for Andrew Tate's tweets here if he didn't convert to Islam indeed. At least he made it public, he made it official. If this was posted by the old Andrew Tate prior to conversion, or if this was posted by Tommy Robinson, which he allies with as well, then again, I wouldn't mind at all. But Andrew Tate, supposedly, allegedly, at this point we really have to say this, converted to Islam. And therefore, with his public presence, he of course has a responsibility to uphold. I heard him say that his faith is private, it's only for him. But you are a public figure after all, and you made your conversion public. 100%. He made it public in Dubai, and then later on he appeared on Muslim channels and spoke about his conversion. So therefore the claim that his faith is somehow private is of course false, because he's not a private person. He's in the public eye. Moreover, now he wants to become the Prime Minister of the UK, and therefore you're entering, if that would ever happen, which it won't, but you would enter that position as a Muslim still. I mean, he didn't denounce his faith yet, so therefore you're still a Muslim. And therefore, as a supposed Muslim, your first priority has to be Allah, God. And hence, following from that, it has to be Islam, which means the submission to Allah, the submission to God. Your religion has to be first. And if you were somebody born into a Muslim family and somehow that family was liberal and you're just essentially Muslim by affiliation, fine. But you consciously chose Islam for a very, very good reason, right? You said that it represents proper tradition, proper values, that this is the only last religion on this planet.
I think it's the last religion on the planet.
But now, all of a sudden, you're talking about Islamists. You're using the same talking points like all of those neocons, Nazis, whatever, white Christians, call them what you will. Essentially, nationalists. This is what you subscribed to now. And when you started talking to people like Patrick Bet-David, Candace Owens, and all the other neocons, most people already got a bit worried for you. But now essentially the worst case scenario happened where you are indirectly denouncing your faith. And I said it before here on this channel, I have no interest at all in takfiring anybody. I really don't care, I'm not in the takfir business. But Andrew Tate basically did it himself by labeling Muslims that are truly standing up for Islam as Islamists. And he's saying there is no place for that whatsoever in Britain. There's no place for Islam, apparently. We are restoring British culture. And British culture, apparently, is a Christian nation with a proud people. Okay, let's continue. He says, in majority Filipino areas of the UK, it must look and feel British. In majority Indian areas of the UK, it must look and feel British. In majority Jewish areas, oh, he named the Jews, of the UK, it must look and feel British. In majority African areas of the UK, it must look and feel British. Again, what does that even mean, man? If you go to Chinatown in New York, does it feel American? No, it feels like China because it is Chinatown. This is nothing new. In majority foreign areas, it won't feel British. Duh, obviously, because it will be a majority area of a different nationality. Immigrate, expect to adapt to British culture. No matter how small the norm. We like quiet Sunday mornings. Problem, leave. You respect British culture, standards of hygiene and social norms. You operate within our parameters. Multiple complaints of the contrary, visa revoked. You do not bring your own culture. Your culture already has a home. Ours does too, and it's Great Britain. If you miss the culture of your host nation, go home. Again, it's the same neocon, neo-Nazi talking points here. Just go home if you don't like it. Meanwhile, Britain colonized half the planet ultimately, and the reason why I'm speaking English here on this channel, it's my third language by the way, is because of this colonization process after all, right? Destroying multiple countries, destroying countries in Africa and whatnot, and therefore creating an environment that is absolutely unlivable for those people, and this is why they left their countries and fled to Europe. Now, after destroying their homes and opening up your borders to those people, you cannot expect from them to be simply British. This is a biological impossibility. An African will never be a Brit. You, Andrew Tate, will neither. You can pose as some sort of neocon, white nationalist. You are half black, you are half African, and therefore genetically, you're simply not a white British person. If you, however, claim to be a Brit now, then what does it truly mean to be British after all? Because you are a mixed-race Muslim. This is what you are. And therefore, if you can be the prime minister, hey, anybody can, right? And matter of fact, you're bringing your culture into Britain as well. The BRUV Party. This is something that developed in recent years. 100 years ago, people didn't say bruv. Your whole persona, be it with your social media, be it with your aspirations of making a lot of money, of hustling, of creating webcam studios and whatever you have done in the past, all of this is a new culture as well that has been introduced into Britain. So basically, you, Andrew Tate, you are a product of modernity, not of Britain as such, but you are a product of modernity indeed, because you are mixed race and you have this social media persona. This is a very, very new movement, which is not indigenous to Britain as such. And hence, just as you are bringing your culture into Britain, so are the Italians with their pizza, or the Turkish with their kebabs, etc., you name it. This is an inevitable fact, ultimately, that people from different biological backgrounds, from different ethnic backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds will bring the culture. Okay, let's watch this video.
I can tell you now that nearly everybody in Europe only cares about one thing. And they're tired of their nations changing demographically. This is the truth. It's not about legal migration, illegal migration. I'm brown. I'm half black, half white. So this isn't a racist point of view. I'm just telling you that everybody, whether they're black, white, brown, whatever, is concerned with the fact that their nation no longer looks like the nation they remember, that people don't speak the language that they used to speak, that their culture.
Yeah, I mean, this is just factually not true at all. If you look into Europe as such, countries like the UK or Germany or whatnot, they are still voting liberal, and it's the huge majority of the country that is voting liberal. So therefore, that everybody is concerned with different colored people is simply not the truth. And moreover, that he says, hey, listen, guys, I'm actually half black, so therefore I'm brown, so it's not a racist talking point. No, it is a racist talking point, nevertheless, right? So I am not a German. I grew up in Germany. I'm a foreigner myself. I come from the Balkan. Now I am a Balkan Muslim. However, if I say all the people from the Balkan that migrated to Germany should leave right now, foreigners out of Germany, please, that is a racist talking point. It doesn't matter that I am part of those people. I simply changed my identification and now I'm posing as a white man. The statement itself is still racist.
It's falling apart. And that they're losing themselves into this primordial, this new world order global soup of various colors and brown. And they're very concerned about that. People of all.
Yeah, yet again, he says that this is some sort of New World Order agenda, ultimately the clergy plan, I assume, and therefore it's just this brown soup of people. Ew, disgusting. You mix all the people and then they turn out brown. Ew, yucky. But I'm brown myself and I'm not a racist.
Nationalities. All
what
races.
Is it?
And that is the thing which we can't seem to ever truly get to the bottom of. We talk about migration, illegal migration, and legal migration, all these different things. That's all actually by the by. Whether they turn up legally, illegally, etc. Of course, illegally is much worse, of course. But primarily, people in Europe are offended by and deeply concerned by the fact that England always looked like England for a very long time, and everyone spoke one language, and it was England, and now it's not. And once it's changed, it can never go back. And we're not allowed to talk about that. In fact, we're psyoped into saying that that's a good thing.
Okay, wait. So he basically is admitting completely here that he wants Britain to be a fully white British nation like it used to be hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But meanwhile, he as a brown person wants to become the Prime Minister of Britain. Under your own rules and regulations, under your own imaginations ultimately, you should be kicked out of the country. Because it doesn't matter, remember, if it is legally or illegally, it does not matter at all. You are not a white Brit, and therefore you should be deported right away, let alone even entertain the idea that you could become a prime minister. Brown people as prime minister? Excuse me.
I'm just telling you what everybody is upset with. Now, America is actually a different scenario, because America is a brand new country that was formed multiculturally. But Cyprus, you're Cypriot, I believe. Cyprus had Cypriot people. And you looked a certain way, and you spoke a certain language, and you did certain things, and you had certain holidays, and certain customs, certain cultures, and you ate certain food. That was Cyprus. And now that's changing. And every single country is changing. You go to Hamburg, you don't see Germans.
Yeah, this is absolutely laughable, man. Of course, he brings up Cyprus now because Cyprus is pretty much half Turkish and half Greek. And now he's talking to the Greek Cypriot here and telling him, well, see, your demographic is changing, your country is changing. Ultimately, again, fear-mongering against the Muslims because this is what the Turks are and they're taking over your island. This is an island demographically located in Turkey, basically, as you can see here in the map. So now, wow, you're telling me some Turks migrated to that island, which is demographically actually in Turkey? How can that be? The Turks are taking over, right? And where do you draw the line, man? This is the real question here, of course. How about Constantinople? Do you want to reconquer that now? This is not Istanbul. This is Constantinople. This is the center of Byzantium. Let's bring it back to Christianity. Don't you see? This would be the logical extension then. Where do you draw the line? Where does history make the shift to a culture that is worth fighting for? A culture that somehow has the claim to eternity because it always was like that. We have to return to Britain in 1995, even though Britain in 1995 was already decaying tremendously. That's insane, man.
Germany anymore. And people are very upset and concerned about that. And for some reason, no matter how you say it, you can't get the Europeans who are in charge, supposedly, in the council, to give a shit. We are being replaced. Native Europeans, which I'm not one of, by the way, I'm American.
Yeah, I want to say we. But that's exactly the point, man. He corrects himself there, but he doesn't truly understand it. He has to even voice it which I'm not, by the way. No, you are half African, so you are a completely new breed. You're of mixed race, and that is fine, but you are not European as such. Genetically speaking, DNA-wise, you could be classified as a North African. This is really what it boils down to. Your genetic makeup is that similar of a North African. So therefore, you're not European, but you're speaking in the we form. Yeah, well, we don't like this. By that, it is crystal clear as what Andrew Tate identifies. And hey, yet again, it's modernity after all. If men can identify as women, I guess Andrew Tate can identify as white.
Replacement is complete. It will never be reversed. And everybody wants to know why that's
So
being done.
you are not saying is good or bad.
Personally, well, I have my personal views.
So first,
Okay, let's move on. Here he reposts the AF post. Andrew Tate has stated that his new political party, BRUV, will not cater to Zionists or Islamists, instead seeking to restore a Christian Britain. And he proudly reposts this thumbnail where he is standing against Islam and against Judaism ultimately, and he is here to restore Christian Britain. So yet again, I'm not here to takfir Andrew, but he's doing the job himself. Okay, what is this? Andrew Tate, Great Britain's Dogecoin will be the Daddy coin. Daddy, Department of Assistance and Development for Domestic Youth. Okay, this is so very gay. Let's proceed. Assimilation and integration are key to orderly immigration. When I am Prime Minister, there is a simple creed. That is quite funny because as Muslims we already have a creed, but he has another creed apparently. If you fail to assimilate, if you fail to integrate, you will fail to immigrate. Yeah, well, basically asking the impossible yet again. He simply denies biology as a fact, it seems. It is, again, a very modernist standpoint because, as I mentioned, a man can identify as a woman and he somehow believes that an African or a mixed race person now somehow can identify as a white British person and assimilate 100% into the culture. This is completely impossible. I am a race realist and race expresses itself in a certain way. This is why an Arab dance looks different than a Polish dance and a Polish dance looks different than an African dance. This is the genetic expression of the people which then is mirrored in their culture. And therefore you cannot simply destroy that biology, remove it and make an African assimilate and make him now white British. This is make-believe, just as the whole transgender agenda that you are allegedly fighting against. Okay, another beautiful post here of brother Andrew Tate, our Muslim brother Andrew Tate. There is an Islamic crime problem within the UK. This is an objective fact. This should outrage Muslims. Instead, Muslims rush to deny the issue or defend their perpetrators. Rape is illegal in Islamic countries, punishable by death, as is illegally invading and occupying lands. You cannot enter Qatar or Bahrain illegally. There is a problem with Islamic crime, which must be accepted before it is addressed. There is nothing that is worse for the reputation of Islam than watching Muslims defend child rapists. And you wonder why Islam is disliked in Christian nations. Yeah, so basically this whole post here is a contradiction within itself, because he says there is an Islamic crime problem within the UK. He states that this is somehow an objective fact. But then at the same time he says rape is illegal in Islamic countries. Rape is illegal not only in Islamic countries, but rape is illegal in Islam. And therefore this cannot be an Islamic crime problem. You have a crime problem, and it does not matter who commits that crime. Is illegal in the UK as well. It's not only illegal in Islamic countries, but matter of fact, as I stated, in Islam, it is haram, obviously, to go out and simply people. But nevertheless, you have to address it as such, as a problem, and not as an Islamic problem. You say somehow that Muslims that do that are smearing the name of Islam. No, you are smearing the name of Islam by saying it is an Islamic problem, which it is not. If those people would adhere to Islam, then you wouldn't have that problem to begin with. So if anything, this is a problem with liberalism and a too weak constitution within your country. And then we have his brother here, Tristan Tate, saying, spoken like a true Muslim. Yeah, as if Tristan Tate knows what a true Muslim is. Defending the faith is exposing and highlighting the criminals within the faith. The Catholics who covered up the child committed by priests are no better. It was the true Catholics that exposed those monsters. Andrew's doing the same. No, Andrew is not doing the same. In the Catholic Church, you had an issue of rape within the church, within the Vatican, which is still ongoing, of course. And therefore, the exposure of those people was the exposure of clergymen, high officials within the religion, allegedly practicing people. But what he is doing here, he is simply pointing out people on the street, criminals that are committing heinous acts, and he labels them as Muslims, and he labels this as an Islamic problem. Do you see the issue here? If you would have, God forbid, such an issue as in the Vatican, for example in Mecca or in Medina, then yes, surely point it out as an Islamic problem if you must. But this here is not the same. You're simply taking people that committed, again, crimes, and now you're saying, oh, well, guys, this is an Islamic problem. No, those are Zionist talking points. He's allegedly against the Zionists here. He said you cannot be an Islamist or a Zionist, but ultimately you are simply regurgitating Zionist talking points. Islam bad. Islam dangerous for Europe. Islam out. This is what you're doing, and I guess you should know better as a Muslim yourself. And now he continues to throw his 50% genetic under the bus here as well, saying there is a black crime problem within the UK, especially stabbings. This is an objective fact. This should outrage blacks. So he's just repeating the same talking points. Instead, black people rush to deny the issue or defend the perpetrators. So he's doing this here to deflect off the negative statements that he made about his own religion, supposedly. Now he's saying, yeah, well, the same applies to the blacks, and hey guys, I'm half black as well. But the reality is, of course, he's not identified as black, and he can pass as well as a tanned white man, and therefore he's basically using his genetics as an excuse to peddle this racist rhetoric. Okay, here 4 hours ago he continues, Muslims in Europe are defending heinous crimes and then act confused when there is obvious bigotry against Islam in the future. What? The grooming gangs were disgusting. Every sane human is against them. The Muslims defending those actions purely because they were committed by other Muslims are destroying the image of Islam in the West. Psyop. Here we see Mohammed Hijab answering, my brother. How very kind of him. I haven't seen anyone defend any Asian groomers, as you know. Their actions are considered severely haram in Islam. According to the latest data by the CSA, there is no disproportionality by Asians in this act. We don't have to follow Elon Musk like sheep. Yeah, I'm going to overlay this graphic so you can see it for yourself as well, that Mohammed Hijab is correct here, of course, that the majority of rapes in the UK are not committed by Asian men. But be that as it may, as Mohammed Hijab here said as well, obviously, it is haram within Islam, so therefore it is not an Islamic problem. It is a problem indeed, and it should be addressed as such, but it's not an Islamic problem. And I haven't seen anybody, any Muslim, defending this. How would they defend the undefendable? If a Muslim commits adultery, for example, we cannot defend that act and say, this is great, this is fantastic, keep on going. And such a heinous crime, of course, it cannot be defended. Which Muslim is defending that? Again, he's simply repeating the same talking points like those other neocons. It's very, very boring. Alright guys, enough of this brain rot. It is really tiresome. Instead, I want to provide you with some value here instead, with the evils of nationalism. This is an Islamic perspective on nationalism. And I want to point out why it is so evil, why it is so bad, what Andrew Tate is promoting here indeed. Because he is not promoting Islam at this point, this is clear. He's promoting nationalism. So here you can see in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, and there is no doubt that the call to nationalism is a call to asbiyah, which means partisanship and party spirit. And it is a call to becoming angry for the sake of asbiyah, for the sake of nationalism, and fighting for nationalism. And there is no doubt also that the call to nationalism is a call to transgression, pride, and arrogance. Since nationalism is not a divinely revealed way of life, which prevents its people from oppression and proud boasting. Rather, it is an ideology from the time of Jahiliyyah, Jahiliyyah meaning the time of ignorance, which leads its people to boasting about it and having asbiyah for it, even if they are the oppressors and the others are the oppressed. I mean, if you look, for example, into America, how they invaded countries like Iraq or Afghanistan, then you can see, of course, this pride in being American, yeah, you go. And meanwhile, they are the oppressors. They are committing those disgusting acts. But because they're following a false belief, they will still be proud within their delusion. And this is why this is so evil, of course. Or here the author points out at Tirmidhi, where Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, "Let people stop boasting about their forefathers who have died, who are merely fuel for the hell fire, or they will certainly be more insignificant with Allah than the beetle which rolls dung with its nose. Allah has removed to you the party spirit of the days of Jahiliyyah, and the boasting about one's forefathers. Indeed, a person is either a pious believer or a wretched sinner. All of mankind are the children of Adam, and Adam was created from clay." Which is followed up beautifully by the Prophet ﷺ saying, "Indeed, there is no excellence for an Arab over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab over an Arab, nor a white person over a black one, nor a black person over a white one, except through taqwa," which means piety and obedience to Allah. So this is the absolute beauty and superiority within Islam. I mean, matter of fact, look at this tweet. Maybe he's going to delete this now, who knows? But this was posted by Andrew Tate on November 14th, 2023. So roughly a year ago. "England needs Islam to save itself from implosion. Would you rather your son come home and say he's a Muslim, or that he's transgender?" So back then, seemingly Andrew Tate understood this truth, this ultimate truth of Islam, this eternal divine truth that trumps nationalism. Here, at least in this tweet, it seems as if he got it. What is worse for you? For your son to come home as a Muslim or as a transgender? He likes to paint those divisive pictures. But ultimately what he's saying here is that only Islam can restore those true core teachings that your culture back then had as well, was adhering to under back then Christianity. But what it really boils down to, and this is actually very simple, is that we as Muslims believe that Islam has been revealed by Allah, and hence it is the ultimate objective truth. And it is the best solution always for all people. The Prophet ﷺ was sent as a mercy to mankind, to every human being ultimately. The doors of Islam are open to everyone, and it is the perfect solution for everybody. Trying to reverse time and bring back Britain to their Christian values, even if you would succeed, let's say you kick out all of the brown and the black people because you hate them so much apparently, and then you make it a white Christian nation, guess what? 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, they will simply do the same mistakes yet again, because Christianity has failed the Brits. You can clearly see it. You're talking about certain politicians, their agendas and whatnot, but ultimately, when you reverted to Islam, you understood how feeble and how weak Christianity is, and that it is not sufficient to put the fear of God into people's hearts. And this is why that nation failed, and this is why all of those nations will fail in the long run. Those nations that don't have God first, they will all fail ultimately. And God can only be addressed first through Islam, because Islam is the only true monotheistic religion. If you have Christianity, on the other hand, you have people worshipping a man on a cross. This is not our God within Islam. This is not the all-powerful God. Do you understand that difference at least? And this is why Christianity cannot repair that mess, cannot repair that weakness, cannot repair that fall, no matter how much you wish that the good old days would come back. As you wrote here correctly, I have to quote you here. The only solution for Britain is Islam. You say it here. England needs Islam. So does the whole world. What will save the world from their liberal downfalls? It is only Islam, of course. And now you're talking about alleged Zionistic psyops, and meanwhile, you are the psyop, man. You are the psyop. You are the supposed brown Muslim prime minister that wants to kick out all the brown evil Muslims. Don't you see this absolute hypocrisy? Alright guys, but this is it for today's video. If you liked it, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, check out the links in the description box below to further support my work. Thank you so much for that, guys. And as always, may God bless you all. Much love and peace.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي